Five-star quarterback Dylan Raiola flips Georgia to Nebraska. This is one of the biggest flips in Rivals history over 20 years, and the biggest since Travis Hunter went from Florida State to Jackson State, which was more of a shock on signing day. Let's talk Raiola with Greg Smith inside Nebraska. How big is this one for the people of Nebraska? And just to get this program going under Rule a little bit.
It's massive. Like, I don't know if you can understate or say enough about how big of a deal this is for Nebraska. Like, we had seen kind of all the social media chatter really since this past Monday afternoon, when it first kind of came out that Raiola and Matt Rhule and Nebraska were even in contact. And obviously there's a myriad of reasons for that, right? It's the fact that he's a five-star quarterback. I believe the first time Nebraska has ever landed a five-star quarterback, the number 2 player in the country. He is a legacy commit. His dad's name is in the stadium. His uncle is on staff as the offensive line coach. Like, there couldn't be more storylines to make Nebraska fans happy. And oh, by the way, he gets injected into what a lot of people still feel like is kind of a resurgence under Matt Rhule, even though they had kind of a rocky up and down year one.
Yeah, and so that's the situation. And you look at last year, this past season, they had 2 quarterbacks that played who had more interceptions than touchdowns, and one who played 10 games who had as many touchdowns as interceptions. This is a situation where a 5-star quarterback like Dylan Raiola can come in and immediately almost run that room. Would you say that to be fair?
Yeah, I would absolutely say that to be fair. And the thing is I think the more you get inside of it, the more you understand that it's actually set up not too bad for him to go ahead and come in and start day one. The one thing we talk so much kind of about the offense and the struggles that they had with Matt Rhule and Marcus Satterfield, that defense under Tony White, they had to fend all sorts of people off to keep Tony White because the defense played so well. So if you come in with all those guys coming back, by the way, you come back and Dylan Raiola as a freshman quarterback and step in to lean on that defense and a veteran offensive line. Like, he's actually in position to, because the bar was so low based off of last year, and they still almost made a bowl game even with really bad quarterback play. And I'd add one more shocking stat to the things you rattled up. Nebraska did not have a 1,000-yard passer last year. Like, that's really hard to do in today's college football. So the bar is low. If he can come in and be okay as a freshman and get some building blocks, I think that they'll be just fine with starting him year one.
Yeah, here are some other stats that I just found like almost incredible. They threw the ball the fewest times in the Big Ten, almost by far. Like, Iowa threw the ball 72 more times. 62 more times than Nebraska, and Iowa's offense, we all know, was sort of a joke. They threw the ball. They kind of gave up the idea of passing the ball downfield. They had 10 touchdown passes the entire season, 16 interceptions, which is the second fewest touchdowns in the entire conference. Only Iowa beat them with 9, but they had the most interceptions in the entire conference, even though they threw the fewest passes, which it's really just honestly incredible. So he steps in, a very talented kid. Now, he has bounced around, and let's be honest. He has been to now 4 high schools, finished at Buford, Georgia. And the intention really was to go to Buford, move everybody there, and then go to Georgia and compete for the starting job there. But Carson Beck comes and has an unexpectedly great season and then doesn't go to the NFL. He's coming back. So I don't think Raiola wanted to kind of sit behind him for a year. And so for Nebraska, a ton of credit to them for keeping on him. He had taken a ton of visits there. And the whole time it wasn't like, oh, this isn't recruiting. This is family stuff. This is family stuff. But Matt Rhule and that staff kept on him and finally flipped him. But in a lot of recruitments, this is true. The cards all fell the right way here.
Yeah, absolutely. They had to fall the exact right way, including like kind of Nebraska's kind of mess of a quarterback room during the season. And then in their quest to fix that quarterback room, we didn't think it was going to Dylan Raiola. We thought, and up until Monday morning, that Kyle McCord was going to be the guy that kind of fit into all of that. And it's so wild to now think about, and it feels like it's been a month since that happened. It's only been a week. And so go back to when I was on the flight with Kyle McCord getting to Nebraska. And then literally 3 hours later is when the reports started coming out about Dylan. To have been a fly on the wall as the McCord family starts to hear about the stuff with Dylan Raiola as they're in a meeting or at dinner with Matt Rule. That had to be fascinating. So this, like, the whole thing honestly did have to break just right. And it's interesting because, Matt Rule, I don't know if he had fully had a choice to make whether or not he was going to pick one of those quarterbacks or the other. But it has been kind of intimated to me that is kind of how that went, is that it was never going to be both. And that is the pie in the sky playing NCAA football on the PlayStation kind of situation where you get them both and you sit one for a year and let him, marinate and develop. It just doesn't happen like that in real life, right? Not for schools like Nebraska that haven't had the success that other schools have had, right? And so it's just a fascinating situation, and it did have to break exactly right with so many other outside factors that also lined up for him to even consider Nebraska in the first place.
For Nebraska fans, Matt Rule will be joining the National College Signing Day show on Rivals early Wednesday morning, and that is also telling that there seemed to be some excitement about what's going on and how this is going to play out here. He will be one of our first guests that day. But yeah, this is interesting. This is college football in 2023. Raiola had been committed to Ohio State. He backed off that pledge early. Okay, everybody does that. He moves to Georgia and then commits to Georgia, and you're like, okay, this is done. And then Nebraska brings in Ohio State's starting quarterback as a potential transfer.
Yep.
And then sort of gets wind that Raiola wants to come, and then we will try to clear that up, but sort of kind of intimates that McCord, okay, maybe you'll play second fiddle here because we want Raiola, and McCord ends up at Syracuse. So a crazy time, a whole lot more to go. It'll be very interesting. But for Nebraska fans, Greg, this has to just feel like, man, finally something really good has happened to us here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that this is for a lot of Nebraska fans. And it's funny as they were over on the Insiders board, as I'm telling them throughout the constant questions this week, hey, patience is a virtue. Be patient. Like, it's going to all unfold the way it's supposed to unfold. And the most common response is, hey, we've been waiting 20 plus years for something big to happen. And when you put it in that perspective, yes, it's been a long time since they had real excitement that goes beyond just the coaching change excitement, which there have been plenty of those. And so, having that excitement, getting a player of this caliber brings, because not only do you, in this case in particular, when it's such a big deal recruit and everyone knows Dylan Raiola, it's not just about what you're getting with him as a player, and he is a fantastic player, but it's also about the other players that could also come along too. Now the guys that will take a look at them, I would look for them to continue to be very active now in the transfer portal to shore up some of those needs, because now they can say, hey, look who we have handing you the ball or throwing you the ball. So it's good times in Lincoln right now.
The first 5-star since 2008. So that's 15 recruiting classes of no 5-stars. The last one was Baker Steinkuhler. Obviously that's a well-known name. The other 4 in Rivals history, Andre Jones, Marlon Lucky, and Demario Williams. But then Zachary Bowman, who kills all the storylines that this is the highest ranked recruit ever at Nebraska, because for some reason, some bird brain in the 2005 recruiting class ranked him number 2 overall. But he was a JUCO kid. So I guess you could say, the highest ranked high school recruit ever in Nebraska history. So that's pretty good. Anyway, that is Greg Smith from Inside Nebraska. I'm Adam Gorney for Rivals.com.